Today I fucked up by not reading the whole email. Recently I applied for the position of pre-roll lead at a marijuana dispensary in my area on Indeed. After completing the application I selected to receive emails regarding similar positions that were available. A few days later I received an email about a second shift supervisor position at a company named Pete and Jerry's Organics. I applied and shortly after they emailed me back about a phone interview. I agreed and they called me almost instantly. The first question was, "What makes you want to work in this field?" Since I was young I've always been intrigued by the different shapes, textures, tastes and smells. Working in the field would be a dream come true. Have you ever owned a bird? Strange question. I do not now or plan to in future own a bird. What do you know about the egg cycle? Must be a bird fan. The interview goes on and at the conclusion we both sound pretty confused. After the phone call I go back and read the listing. For a position working with chickens. TLR today I fucked up by not reading the whole email and applying for a position at a poultry farm with marijuana answers. Somebody out there thinks I was smelling random birds all my life. Jesus XD. Must be a bird fan. That made me laugh. As a chicken owner this post made me belly laugh. Do not smell them, they will think you're weird. I knew the second I read Pete and Jerry's they were not what you thought. I work in a grocery store. But I wasn't expecting you to have such a hilarious answer to the first question. They probably left that phone call thinking you have a fetish for birds rolling on the floor laughing. As a bird owner, there are plenty of bird owners that regularly sniff their birds. Please don't go tasting them though. Today I fucked up by making a small package joke about myself. I sometimes joke about having a small penis. I prefer saying I'm on the small size since most guys say they have a big one. Now, I didn't think it was small. It's not big, but definitely not small, or so I thought. It's usually all in good fun and makes people laugh. Up until today, I've never made this type of joke with a woman I've slept with. I also don't usually make this type of joke around women unless we have a certain dynamic. To be clear, I was not looking for validation or objection, but when I made the joke, she laughed and appeared to agree. Even though I wasn't looking for an objection, her response hit me by surprise. I am now haunted by this and now I'm doubting the women that have said they were satisfied. Our encounter was several years ago, so she might just not remember. I'm also thinking I left her unsatisfied and that's the reason we haven't revisited things despite my best efforts. Too long did not read. I made a small penis job about myself to a woman I've slept with and she didn't disagree. Update. Thanks for the response. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things based on common responses. It wasn't the laugh, it was what she said along with it. I would put here what she said but it wouldn't make sense out of the context of the conversation we were having at the time. I wasn't looking for validation or her to straight out disagree. It was just her response that took me by surprise and made me think about what she thought of my size. As far as I know, my size hasn't mattered and I've satisfied most of my partners, or so they say. About 5.5, top. I'd rather make a small penis joke about myself than a large one. Also, you already slept with her so what else? Unless you wanted more. Whether your penis is too small or too large only matters to and can only be judged by your sex partners. Even if you are ridiculously small, or large for that matter, you can always supplement with hardware. It's not that big a deal. Measure it and we will see if it's small, average or large. You were making a joke, she played along with the joke. It doesn't mean she agrees that it's small, she's just going along with a joke premise that you set up. She laughed because she thought you were confident enough to make a joke at your dick's expense. Instead, you got offended. That's not. You missed the whole point of telling a joke. 2 + 2 = 4 and laughter at the end of a joke equals success. My husband makes self-deprecating jokes about his dick and I can laugh all I want because it's a fucking battering ram and I no longer have a gag reflex. Calm down, your ding-dong is fine. Talk to her. I've had guys joke about that and I just laugh, whether or not I've seen it or not. I didn't know I was supposed to object? Like if you're joking about it, I usually assume that you're at least somewhat confident about yourself, and so I wouldn't have to confirm nor deny. Today I fucked up by pretending to throw a PB&J sandwich to my son. Happened yesterday around 2 p.m. Sunday afternoon and the family was sitting around the living room. My 8-year-old son was hungry, so I offered to grab him an Uncrustable. For the uninitiated, these are pre-packaged peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the shape of a circle with the crust removed. We keep a box of them in the freezer for the occasional school lunch. Why the freezer? Because we put them in the kids' lunchboxes in the morning, and they serve as a slight ice pack to keep everything cool until lunch. Because kids are weird, though, they actually like them frozen sometimes and will bite, chew on them. Thus, he was happy to be offered one so freely when they are normally a treat. I am a goofy dad with my kids, so I like to play lots of little jokes on my kids. I like being silly. It's fun. I walk back into the room and do a big dramatic baseball pitcher wind up like I am going to throw the sandwich at him. When it gets time to release the sandwich, I spin around and don't throw it. I do it all big and over the top. You probably think you know what's coming next, but nope. My performance goes off without a hitch. I do it a second time, and same result. My son flinches and then laughs. After the second one, I come closer to him, toss it in his lap. And then I make probably my real mistake. I give my son a little tickle. He is very ticklish, and I generally know that when I tickle him, he has a certain level of freedom to retaliate against me. He also has a tendency towards disproportionate responses and not thinking through his actions, as will be seen. I turn to walk away, and after 2 steps, my son says, "Dad," and I turn back as I take the next step. When I do, he throws that frozen hockey puck of a sandwich at me as hard as he can, and it hits me right in the eye. I had not time to react. It hit me right as I was turning. I have been punched in the face before, but not since high school. But this was worse. Way worse. It dropped me hard. I am not some super tough guy, but I have always been feisty. I have never had anything drop me like this before. Everyone thought that I was being silly, as would be normal. It was a few seconds later that they realized I was actually in serious pain. My son comes running to me crying, and it is a good 20–30 seconds before I could even respond with anything other than groans. After a few minutes of telling people to just give me a minute, I realized that I could open my eye and that it was still working. I have my wife bring my son, who had fled to his room sobbing thinking he had killed me, and assure him that I am okay. I got him calmed down and reassured that it was an accident. But this is why I talk to him about thinking before he acts. I then make a few jokes, which finally makes him realize I really am okay. He carry on with the rest of our day, and I take him to see a school of rock play. We have a great time. It's been about 21 hours, and I still have a headache, although not as bad as yesterday. What is worse today, though, is my black eye. Yes, I received a black eye from a PB&J sandwich. You can see it here. TLR played a joke with my son, and he did responded with throwing a frozen sandwich at me, knocking me down and giving me a black eye. Did you use the sandwich to ice the bruise though? Edit. Seriously, if you get an injury that's not major, broken bones, don't just rub it off. Icing drastically reduces your recovery time, especially within the first 5 minutes of impact. The way you described your home life on how you are with your kids made me look forward to that part of my life. In your kid's defense, my dad tickling me to wake me up as a kid is when I first discovered what it feels like to hate a loved one while reminding yourself of their other virtues. XD. Why the freezer? Because that's the only way possible to store them, as indicated on the box. If you kept them refrigerated, they'd turn into goo. Holy hell. It took off your hair too. If you still have a headache after 22 hours op, you should be assessed for a concussion. From this story it seems like you have a great father-son relationship. Stuff like this happens all the time. I'm glad you didn't make your son worry too much.